call this meeting, the James City County Board of Supervisors, our business meeting to order. First, let me thank my colleagues and the public for going an hour later today. Much appreciated. Mr. Stevens, if you could call the roll.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Null?
Present.
Mr. Hippel?
Here.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Here.
Mr. Eisen?
Here.
Ms. Larson?
Here.
All present.
First, we have a proclamation. February 2024 is Williamsburg Community Foundation Month. And I'd ask that Nancy come down, please. Whereas the proclamation is February 2024 is Williamsburg Community Foundation Month. Whereas the Greater Williamsburg Community Trust, commonly known as the Williamsburg Community Foundation, was founded on February 1st, 1999 by local community leaders with the purpose of enriching, enhancing, and enlivening the quality of life for Greater Williamsburg residents. And whereas hundreds of James City County residents, business owners, and nonprofit organizations have donated to establish endowments that improve the quality of life for our citizens. And whereas in 2020, James City County partnered with the Williamsburg Community Foundation to provide over $300,000 in grants to support James City County small businesses during the COVID pandemic. And whereas the Williamsburg Community Foundation has provided over $11.7 million in grants to support the arts and culture, children and young adults, environment and conservation, health and community wellness, economic mobility and senior services, and provided scholarships to Greater Williamsburg area high school students for their continuing education over 25 years. And whereas the James City County Board of Supervisors wishes to acknowledge the work of the Williamsburg Community Foundation in supporting the needs and improving the quality of life for James City County residents through its grant and scholarship programs, now therefore be it resolved that I, Chair of the Board of Supervisors of James City County, Virginia, do hereby proclaim February 2024 as Williamsburg Community Foundation Month and call upon all citizens to join me in recognizing the impact of the Williamsburg Community Foundation on our citizens. In witness whereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the County of James City, Virginia to be affixed. So congratulations. Appreciate it. Would you like to say something? Nancy Sullivan.
Well, thank you so much for this honor. It has been a privilege to have been here I've been here for 20 years, but for the Community Foundation to be here for 25 to serve the citizens of our local community. And we look forward to being here for another 25. Thank you all so much.
Next, we have a proclamation to present to Rich Krapf, who has served on our planning commission for many years. And it says that I am to present it, but I didn't know, Mr. Hippel, if you would like to present it or at least come down.
I'll come down with you.
All right. Mr. Krapf, if you would come forward, please. Whereas Mr. Krapf has served the citizens of James City County as a member of its Planning Commission from January 2007 to January 2024. Wow. And whereas Mr. Rich Krapf has served the citizens of James City County as a member of 2 ad hoc committees, serving first on the Rural Land Study Committee in 2005 and later on the Rural Economic Development Committee in 2016. And whereas Mr. Krapf served as chair of the Planning Commission in 2009, 2014, 2017, and 2020. And whereas Mr. Krapf actively participated in developing 3 award-winning updates to the comprehensive plan: James City County 2009 Comprehensive Plan, Historic Past, Sustainable Future; James City County 2015 Comprehensive Plan, Toward 2035, Leading the Way; James City County 2045 Comprehensive Plan, Our County, Our Shared Future. And whereas in support of the development of those plans, Mr. Krapf served as a member of the 2008 Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee, as chair of the 2015 Planning Commission Working Group, and as chair of the 2020 Planning Commission Working Group. And whereas Mr. Krapf served on the Planning Commission's Development Review Committee and the Policy Committee, and whereas Mr. Krapf served as chair of the Policy Committee in 2016 and chair of the Development Review Committee in 2018, and whereas during Mr. Krapf's service, the Planning Commission reviewed substantive updates to the zoning ordinance and the subdivision ordinance and considered numerous legislative development cases, and whereas Mr. Krapf was a graduate of the Virginia Certified Planning Commissioner Program, now there be it resolved that I, Chair of the Board of Supervisors of James City County, Virginia, hereby honor and commend Mr. Rich Krapf for the tremendous service he has given to the community, and witness whereof I hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the County of James City, Virginia. Oh, sorry. Be it further resolved that the Board of Supervisors of James City County wishes to express its gratitude and best wishes to Mr. Krapf in his future endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Wow, what a service.
Good job. That's a lot of hard work.
Well, Madam Chair, members of the board, thank you very much. I have to say it's been a real honor to have served the county over all this time, but I do want to take a minute and just make a couple comments. My colleagues a couple weeks ago gave me a really nice farewell, and I don't want to repeat what I said, but there are a couple items that I'd like to emphasize, and one is I'd like to thank you, the board as a body, for allowing me to stay as long as you have. And I specifically wanted to point out, to thank 3 supervisors of very differing political persuasions and personalities who have either appointed or reappointed me, and that was Andy Bradshaw and Jim Kennedy and our own Michael Hipple. And so thank you very much for putting your trust in me. I do also want to say that it's been such a privilege not only to serve the community, but also to work with the individuals, the staff, and the other people that we have. The professionalism is just tremendous, and their breadth of knowledge has been so helpful, and so that's very much appreciated. My colleagues, goes without saying, this is one of the things that I mentioned was that we have the ability to disagree when we're discussing items, but not have resentments. Once the vote's over, everything is professional, everything is collegial, and so that makes a real difference in how we go about doing our business. My wife's support has always been unwavering, and she's always been watching those countless hours of televised meetings, and I appreciate that. But the one thing I'd like to repeat that for anybody watching or for citizens out there, for 2 groups of people, whether you are not happy with the way things are and want to see a change, or whether you don't want to see any change at all, the words of advice are still the same, and that is get involved. There are so many opportunities to get on boards and commissions here in James City County, and I can personally attest it's so rewarding to be part of the process, you know, to at least be able to express your opinions, to work within the system, to try to bring about the change or not the change that you would like to see. And so I would recommend that to anybody. It's a very rewarding experience. And so on that note, I want to thank you all very much for your support, and it's been a real privilege. Thank you.
I'll get you later for this.
Both of those honorees have done tremendous, have been a tremendous asset to our community. We're so fortunate here that we have people and organizations that want to do so much for other people. With that, we have our update on our annual report from Colonial Soil and Water Conservation. Mr. Lund, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, members of the board, Mr. Stevens, Mr. Kinsman, residents here and watching from home. I'm Bob Lund. I'm one of 2 directors elected from James City County to represent us at the Colonial Soil and Water Conservation District. And I'll provide a brief report about Colonial accomplishments and efforts in James City. Our annual report for fiscal year 2023 should be at your desk and is available on our website, and I welcome your questions. Soil and water conservation districts are political subdivisions of the Commonwealth of Virginia, supporting and encouraging voluntary conservation efforts. Colonial serves James City County and 3 others, plus the city of Williamsburg. Our 825 square mile district is home to about 175,000 people. Colonial complements agricultural conservation with increased urban and suburban efforts. Local government funding and grants enables offering our residents more than Virginia Department of Conservation and Recreation cost share programs. James City has about 3,150 acres of cropland. This program defrays cost of conservation practices on our farmland and enables us offering technical assistance. Facilitated practices shelter topsoil from erosion and reduce nutrient runoff into our watersheds, thus protecting farmland for future generations and our waterways for fishing and swimming. Reducing sediment and other nutrient fuels to our waterways diminishes incidence of algae bloom, which can cause fish kills and be toxic. You can see a significant increase in the amount of cost share money provided in 2023. More than 10,000 acres benefited from environmental improvement practices funded by Colonial over the past 5 years, most from these top 5, especially nutrient management, which caused us to break the scale on the right. Otherwise, that acreage would blast through the top of the chart. Colonial also completed 2 significant environmental improvement structural practices in James City. This is one of them, showing the significant erosion issues present on the edge of this agricultural land. You can see that erosion has been mitigated by the implemented structural practices. Colonial conducts 5 assessments on our agricultural lands annually under a cooperative agreement with James City County, supporting our County Chesapeake Bay Preservation Ordinance. Conservation planning to address Bay Act issues is an example of necessary technical support and training no longer state funded. Colonial facilitated Virginia's Dominion Envirothon, an environmental conservation competition for high school students, and again sponsored the Jamestown High School team at regional and state levels. Colonial also sponsored a James City student at Youth Conservation Camp, a hands-on outdoor learning experience for high school students at and around Virginia Tech. Through the Virginia Conservation Assistance Program, Colonial provides technical advice and financial assistance for adoption of non-agricultural conservation practices. Focus is on smaller projects than James City County usually does and can provide complementary cost-share funding to other programs, such as the James City Clean Water Heritage Program. In the last 5 years, $45,338 spent for conservation improvement by our homeowners, HOAs, and schools was matched more than 2 for 1 through this program. Practices redirect and or manage rainwater so it soaks into the ground improving groundwater reserves or use by plants, thus reducing stormwater contribution to floods, erosion, and pollution of our ponds, streams, and rivers. These were the most common practices in 2023. Funding carries a 10-year obligation, applicant to maintain and district to inspect. Environmentally responsible lawn care includes applying the right amount of fertilizer based on a soil test result and using irrigation systems efficiently to minimize wasted water. Just enough fertilizer improves swim and fish ability by reducing nutrient fuel stimulation of algae blooms in our waterways. 3 staff members are state certified in turf and landscape nutrient management. Since February 2019, Colonial completed 393 certified nutrient management plans for private properties and 41 for county properties. In 2023 alone, Colonial completed, and with the appreciated support of James City Williamsburg Master Gardener volunteers, Turf Love teaches homeowners how to maintain their lawns in an environmentally responsible way. This public education event provided attendees with sustainable lawn care advice from regional turf experts last year. During it, we honored founder Bob Winters to celebrate all he has done for the program. Turf Love hosted other public educational events focusing on responsible and general lawn care throughout the year. Colonial created Williamsburg Community Growers and continues to provide administrative, technical, and grant funding support. This community garden and teaching farm between War Hill High School and Williamsburg Indoor Sports Complex educates about benefits of producing and consuming locally grown produce, conservation practices, and provides 100 gardening spaces. To thank James City County and Dominion for use of the land, the many donors, other supporters, and volunteers for more than 16,000 hours contributed the last 3 years. Also, dozens of field trips and educational opportunities with our schools were facilitated and real conservation opportunities to protect our natural resources demonstrated. We appreciate James City County's support for these programs, which so far this fiscal year facilitated Colonial and James City making 17 site visits, almost double visits last year, completing an inspection and Virginia Conservation Assistance conservation landscaping project in Toronto, with applications for more projects under development, in fact 3 being considered tonight, preparing 35 Turf Love nutrient management plans with more underway, and 3 Turf Love educational events. Colonial staff work closely with staff from James City County Stormwater and Resource Protection Division and James City Service Authority to ensure county funds are used efficiently and effectively to best serve and support our residents working towards conserving their surrounding environment. I respectfully request your continued support at the same level of these programs for James City residents and organizations, so Colonial can continue contributing to preservation and improvement of our county environment, including swim and fishability of our local waterways for recreational and other uses benefiting both our residents and tourists. Colonial values our partnership with the county immensely and will continue to strengthen it through new conservation initiatives and opportunities. Colonial increased staff working on Virginia Conservation Assistance. Our full-time outreach specialist is improving our communication about offered programs such as Turf Love, Virginia Conservation Assistance, Virginia Agricultural Cost Share, and more, like the new Alliance to Advance Climate Smart Agriculture. We also recently hired a person, bringing us to 3, and am in the process of hiring another, which will bring us to 4 full-time staff supporting agricultural programs. The Colonial District is a resource with unique knowledge and tailored programs complementing others, given continued support. We continue working with partners and participating in pilot programs to enable better service to James City and efforts to secure grants to complement public money, local funds can help strengthen our grant applications, which often require matching contribution. In closing, I want to again thank James City County Stormwater and Resource Protection and James City Service Authority for their support over the years, all our other partners, program participants, and volunteers who so generously give of their time. This concludes our presentation. Are there any questions? Thank you for your attention.
I don't have any questions, but I would like to commend Mr. London and the Soil and Water Conservation District for the great work they've been doing. With relatively limited resources, making the greatest advantage of all of that. Over the last several years, we've seen some real improvements and great additional asset for some of our environmental goals. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, I have the luck of working with a great team on the board over the years, and, really marvelous staff. And, our staff makes all the difference, just as the James City County staff. Thank you again.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I'll move to the consent calendar. 1, appointment of Assistant Fire Marshal and authorization of fire prevention powers. 2, contract award annual job order contract services. 3, contract awards annual stormwater construction and repair services. 4, contract amendment Tyler Technology. 5, fitness court grants Williamsburg Health Foundation and National Fitness Campaign. 6, grant award for $95,594 Commonwealth's Attorney V-Stop Grant Program Fund. 7, minutes adoption. 8, resolution of Chesapeake Bay Preservation Ordinance violation at 3520 Barrett's Ferry Drive. 9, resolution of illicit discharge detection and elimination violation at 4540 Casey Boulevard. Does anyone wish to pull an item? So I would like to pull, if I could, 1, 3, and 5. Actually, I'm okay if somebody wants to make a motion to approve all of those. I would just like to hear more on those 3 items.
And with
Is there a
that,
motion?
I'll be happy to move the consent calendar.
Thank you. Mr. Stevens?
Ms. Knoll?
Aye.
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Chief Ash. Just introduce your appointee.
Good afternoon, Board. Before you today is a resolution to appoint Joe Davis as Assistant Fire Marshal and authorizing the fire prevention powers. And many of you may know Joe from his previous life or his previous career with us. Oftentimes we're here to appoint Assistant Fire Marshal, and that's a person who's a relatively new employee who's gone through the additional training. In this case, it's kind of a return back to his origins where he came from. So Joe started with us in 1984 as a firefighter, retired in 2013 as the deputy chief. And essentially the fire marshal's office, kind of as we know it today, was really built by Joe back in the 80s and 90s, formulating the fire marshal's office. So he retired in 2013, very quickly came back to work with us part-time in emergency management, worked as an employment coordinator most recently until we made that a full-time position in the last budget year, and realized that Joe's skills were useful to us over in the fire marshal's office. So we moved him back into the fire marshal's office, and which was an assignment he gladly accepted because he said sort of throwing him back to where he came from. So this is really reappointing him to the same powers and authorities that he had for many, many years and may have interacted with some of you or certainly our business community and developers. So we're very pleased to still have Joe on our team. We find ourselves frequently asking him information for historical value of why something's the way it is, and he's always pretty quick to recall all that stuff. So
Thank you
supporting him today.
very much. Welcome back. Thank
I
you.
knew you couldn't leave.
Glad y'all have me again, so.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
Mr. Gordon? Just real quick, just what this is, because stormwater is such an issue here. I just
So before you today is a resolution for annual services award contracts. This is a continuation of the ones we currently have that were extended for 6 months until we could bridge the gap. So essentially, this contract resolution is for 6 awards for various local contractors in the area. Each one you'll kind of see kind of brings their own specialty and service. So we kind of tap into each of those special resources depending on what the project is. They will cover drainage issues of smaller nature. These contracts only go up to $100,000. It's a one-year contract with 4 one-year renewals. So a lot of times these will be for B&P repairs, small drainage, some maintenance projects throughout that we're working hand in hand.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much. Ms. Brittle, I just thought this was exciting and thought people ought to tell people about it. Yeah.
What you have before you is a grant award. The county was awarded a grant from the Williamsburg Health Foundation and also from the National Fitness Campaign to put in a new fitness court out at War Hill Sports Complex. It's a court that's going to be beside the existing basketball court, if you're familiar with that is. And it's an outdoor gym, basically. Different pieces of equipment, self-led exercising through the use of an app and some signage. We're also going to put some instructor time out there, a couple of partnership with providers in the county to lead people through equipment, do some classes. It's a way to engage citizens who prefer to work outdoors. Also for the parents that bring their kids to activities at War Hill, sitting in their car. We're very excited to partner with the Health Foundation on this.
Great, thank you. All right, thank you very much. With that, that brings us to board discussions, and today we have a solid waste consolidation. Bob Dittman, Director of Solid Waste. Good afternoon.
Madam Chair, members of the board. What I'm here today is to update the board on solid waste consolidation. I know this is a topic that the board has reviewed since probably 2019, 2020. Currently, within the county, there are 5 haulers that operate everywhere within the county. They may have different names on the trucks, but there are only 5. Currently, it's a free market system where the hauler or the homeowner has the benefit of picking who and choosing who they want. Now, within that system, there are some inherent inefficiencies that keep the prices higher and also have a greater impact on the environment. The simple truth in the solid waste industry is greater housing density equals greater route efficiency equals lower operating costs for the waste companies, which then in turn will result in lower costs to the homeowners. So another way to think of it is bundling. If we can drive down the cost of solid waste collection on a monthly basis per homeowner, we can add in some, in essence, value-added services. We can do some minor storm debris cleanup. We can add in there the cost of recycling. We can get uniform vehicles, uniform containers, one truck in one neighborhood on one day of the week. Not in some cases, there's 3 different trucks on one street on the same day. Why hasn't this occurred sooner? Change is difficult, and this has gone twice. My hand is. Why isn't it done sooner? Change is difficult, and the rules contained in VA Code 152934 makes it cumbersome. There are quite a few hoops that the county has to jump through in order to put this process in place. First and foremost is holding a public hearing and providing notice 45 days in advance of the public hearing. And that is actually the first and foremost thing that has to happen. And in essence, we have to wait 5 years after that. Just the way the law was written, I believe the solid waste industry likes it that way. I believe there was discussion in Richmond about trying to shorten the 5-year window, and it was shot down quickly. So the effect of delaying the consolidation, there's annual rate hikes, I think, for every homeowner. And that will continue. There's, in essence, there aren't contracts. There's still multiple haulers. You're going to have greater wear and tear on the roads of the county. You have a limited ability to regulate open burning when you don't have a solid waste management ordinance, and illegal dumping will remain an issue. Benefits to it. If we can maximize the housing density, then we can drive the rates down because it'll be more efficient for the waste haulers to come in. The county could act as a single point of contact for complaints as well as billing. If the solid waste haulers don't have to bill each individual homeowner, their costs go down. So then we can pass those savings along to the homeowners. We can ensure that every homeowner is getting the same rate, the same quality service throughout the county. And again, we can provide some of the minor storm relief. We can add in some additional benefits, probably near what most homeowners are paying right now for solid waste collection alone. I've visited 14 different localities, and the ones that have solid waste consolidation or some way to manage solid waste within their boundaries all have lower rates for below $30 per house per month for solid waste and recycling. Outside of Richmond, the Central Virginia Waste Management Authority grouped 4 localities together, and their rate for solid waste collection was $16 per home per month. So there is savings when you can create the density. Once should the council determine or decide to move forward, there's a lot of work that has to go on with it, and it's really within a 3-year period, because at the end of 3 years, the county would need to make a decision on whether they would want to look at providing the service themselves or contracting it out. If the county was desired to provide it themselves, you're looking at about 18-month to 2-year lead time for collection vehicles. So that's why I'm saying about 3 years out, we would need to make a decision. For if we were going to privatize it or franchise it or contract it out by area or countywide, again, you're going to need to figure out the most efficient areas if we're going to group them, do the RFP, and then review it and make a decision. So again, the actions after the public hearing, that is all things that just have to take place once there's a public hearing. Nothing can occur until the county would authorize the county attorney to advertise for a public hearing. It has to, and we have to notify the public and all potentially affected haulers 45 days prior to the hearing. So my estimate is that March 26th would be the earliest that we could probably have a public hearing. So it's one of those things that the sooner we start the clock, the better, if the county so desires to continue to move forward on solid waste consolidation. Any questions?
I will just say right now, I pay $35 a month for my trash. I've been with the same provider for about 30 years, and I pay $21 for my recycling, so quarterly. So that's my cost that I mean, that's once a week getting trash pickup.
Issue is every homeowner, they need to make money on every account. Whereas if it's if it's the county as a whole, they only need to make, only need to turn a profit on the county. They don't need to make 20% off of you, 20%, and that's why you get the variations. Plus, if they're able to service more houses in a smaller area, it makes it more efficient for them.
I will also say that I have received several emails in favor of, people have been paying attention to the trash consolidation. I've received several emails in favor of trash consolidation. I've not received anything against. Doesn't mean it won't happen now, but just stating for the record. And I know that the one thing that we've always gotten a lot of pressure on is the storm debris cleanup.
Yes.
Because our neighbors are able to do that in York because they provide this. We've not been able to do that.
Yes.
So,
And I don't want to say, I'm going to say it. The Newport News, they have the same number of grapple trucks to go and do bulk pickup, storm debris pickup, as they do trash trucks out there. And they run routes every day, every week. I'm not sure that we want to be in that position.
right.
But I believe that we can do about 1,500 bulk debris, however you want to look at it, pickups per year with two trucks, full-time drivers. Right now, we do them with the staff that we have at the convenience centers.
Is there does the board wish to proceed with scheduling a public hearing on March 26th?
I would.
Yes.
I'd move forward on.
Vote on that? Just schedule the public hearing. All right. We'll move forward with scheduling the public hearing.
Let's do it.
And the other thing is that 45 days prior, we also have to notify all of the affected haulers, which there's all of 5.
Adam, notify the 45 days prior.
It's very detailed in the VA code of what we have, the hoops we have to jump through, so.
All right. Thank you.
Which I know
So, can I
county
just-
attorneys are well
Can I
aware
just
of.
ask a question or two? The first question that I have really is, does it mean then that there's no way that we can provide a county service before 5 years?
In essence, there's probably 2 instances that could come up, is that if it's I have to look exactly what the wording is. If 55% of the property owners petition the county to take it over sooner. And that's property owners, that's not residents, so that includes commercial, all property owners. The other would be if there is a threat to public health and welfare. I think those are pretty much the 2 that get you around the 5 years. Believe me, I really looked hard.
Chair, members of the board, I'd also add you can pay, right? We can pay to displace the haulers. Mr. Jipman had included a number of $10 to $12 million, their annual revenue. I think that's not what we would recommend. And then we've talked about the ability, could we get into it on a voluntary basis and just be another competition out there for residents to choose from? You couldn't require it of all residents, but that may be an option for us to consider. And again, doing the public hearing doesn't do anything except start the public hearing, listen to comments. It starts that 5-year clock, and then you can decide beyond that how we'd want to proceed, either in the short term or long term in terms of providing the service.
Well, even though I know that getting 55% of property owners to petition probably beyond us, because we're really not talking about commercial pickup, are we?
Oh,
Yeah.
this residential.
I think that we want to keep every other option on the table and see what we might be able to think about in the future. Obviously, one of the shortcomings of having to wait 5 years is that we are still limited then in our ability to control open burning in residential areas. And so I'm sorry that's the case, but would like, obviously, to be able to do something about that at an earlier stage.
In essence, the way they wrote the code is that if a locality does something, enact something that would displace a hauler without going through the steps, the county could be subject to a penalty equal to 12 months of the previous 12 months gross revenue. set up pretty well in the favor of haulers.
I'm not surprised. And then just one last question, not directly on this service, but rather on the convenience center that we have had in our CIP for Grove, what the current status of that is. And when-
We have a meeting next Tuesday with the consultant that did the first preliminary design, I think back in 20. We're going to update and review that and then update the cost estimate. So we're going to take a look at that and get that the information more current for you.
Okay. I would like to note that, this is something that's been on the plans for quite a while, and would certainly hope that sometime this year we're able to provide that facility for operation. It's a persistent problem of pretty significant littering and disposal on the side of roads in the area, and a long distance for folks in that part of the county to get to the convenience centers that are open.
And Mr. McGlynn, I apologize for some of that delay. I won't let Bob or Mr. Dittman take the credit for the delay in the Grove Convenience Center. That has been me trying to make sure there's a use for it if we move into the trash consolidation business, and I do believe there will be. After some conversations with staff and Mr. Dittman, I think long-term there's value in those stations, whether they're convenience centers or recycling centers or something. If you choose to get into the trash collection business, I still think there's value in those sites, so we'll work to move that forward this year as well.
Thank you.
The only thing I would offer is I think it's important we should really start the clock, because we've talked about it for quite a while. And I can remember when I went from one provider to another and dropped from about $30 a month down to about 16. And that 16 is back up to 30 again. And the 30 I pay now is not what everybody else in my community pays. Some pay more, some pay less. And that's one of the big frustrations. And the real big frustration is the lack of ability to contact anyone. They are just absolutely not available. And I think that this would go a long way toward solving the customer service aspect of it. So I look forward to maybe getting the board to make a decision 3 years from now.
And Madam Chair, I would say that one of the real frustrations is that we're starting to see almost monthly increases by some of the carriers, some of the carters in what they're charging, and addition of fuel surcharges at the very moment that gasoline prices and diesel prices are coming down. So it's, I think, going to be more and more of an issue with our residents as time goes on.
Thank you. That brings us to board considerations. First is the Yarmouth Creek Watershed Management Plan adoption. Michael Wilson. Afternoon.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board, Mr. Stevens. I'm Mike Wilson, Section Chief for Stormwater and Resource Protection here with the SRP Director, Tony Small, and our consultant, Daniel Proctor from Stantec. We're here to present the Yarmouth Creek Watershed Management Plan for the board's consideration. County has undertaken 6 watershed management plans since we began this effort in 1998. Of those 6, 2 have been updated to consider current conditions. One, Powhatan Creek, you readopted last year, and the other, Yarmouth Creek, is on today's schedule. Yarmouth Creek Watershed Plan is similar to our other approved plans in that it encourages improved management of the county's resources through development and private property owner incentives. Yarmouth Creek Watershed, located in the southwest portion of the county, is the second largest watershed in the county and is divided into 10 subwatersheds. It stretches from the headwater subwatersheds west of Route 60 and south of Forge Road, draining into the Chickahominy River, and encompasses the Little Creek Reservoir area and Chickahominy Haven. Watershed Management Plan identifies environmentally sensitive areas and develops specific protections, restoration, and infrastructure retrofit recommendations. The plan also identifies watershed restoration opportunities, including the potential projects for the county capital improvement and maintenance programs. We are happy to answer any questions you may have after this plan has been presented by Mr. Proctor, and we do recommend adoption of the resolution. Thank you.
Afternoon. We have a few summary slides just to go over the content of the plan and some of the process that we followed in its creation. Happy to answer questions at the watershed assessment that we followed involved three main parts. One, looking back at past studies as far as water quality impairments and monitoring data that are out there. Two, field level review of stream channels and stormwater conditions throughout the watershed. And then third, a series of desktop level analyses that we. Few of the key findings in each of those areas. As far as monitoring data, the watershed is impaired for bacteria, similar to a lot of the local watersheds. We did want to point out, after some review of that information, there's very limited monitoring data, so there was a recommendation for further discussion with DEQ for a little bit more detail. Second, we performed an impervious cover model review, similar to with the other watersheds, to see trends as far as development over time. Going back to the initial data from 2000, from the original watershed plan review, all the sub-watersheds within Yarmouth Creek were listed as sensitive, which was the highest, the least amount of development, less than 10% impervious cover. In 2008, that went up to where one sub-watershed moved to the next level of the impacted, where impervious cover was beyond 10%. Current conditions that were reviewed from 2022 data showed that two sub-watersheds are now impacted, and then projecting in the future based on zoning conditions and how much development could be allowed for, showed three sub-watersheds impacted and then a fourth in a further development state of non-supporting. We also performed a conservation area review of potential resources that are present. A few notable findings: there's a number of rare, threatened, and endangered species throughout the watershed, which is a very good thing. That has increased over time in some areas. There have been notable past conservation efforts of areas already conserved, and then there were significant areas for additional conservation reviewed. And we also performed water quality modeling to understand nutrient and sediment and bacteria conditions, both at a present state as well as in that future conditions if the watershed were to fully build out. A few results from that. The areas along Route 60, you can see where the red and orange sub-watersheds in these graphics, those are the locations where with the greatest existing development as well as future development based on the zoning. Most of the watershed is very undeveloped and very low pollution, and that has helped balance out a lot of those areas along Route 60. There is some increase in downstream pollution below those watersheds because of where they're located, but that is largely contained to above Cranston's Mill Pond, which seems to effects of that. As far as our field assessments, 30% of the stream channels that we evaluated were in poor marginal conditions, whereas 70% were in good or optimal conditions. There was also a flood risk review. A few notable results there. There were over 300 homes within the existing floodplain, predominantly in Chickahominy Haven, which is a flood-prone area. And if we looked at future projections for sea level rise, there'd be an additional 22% increase in at-risk homes. The overall main takeaways is that the watershed is very healthy, despite some noted impairments. And that development along the Route 60 corridor could affect that if left unmitigated. The plan also included a number of recommendations. We grouped it into 5 different types. Stormwater treatment practices that could be evaluated and implemented, programmatic solutions similar to what the county's already doing and building off of that, potential regulatory or enforcement actions, floodplain management related recommendations, and then public outreach. A couple examples of each of those. On the regulatory enforcement side, similar to what we shared during the Powhatan plan, was a recommendation to improve the special stormwater criteria. An example of the programmatic efforts is to expand the land conservation efforts that are ongoing, as well as continued septic system cleanouts and inspections and repairs. Example of education and awareness, increasing the pet waste reduction methods, the awareness of having to clean up the pet waste and opportunities for residents to have access to those pet waste stations. Example of the stormwater treatment practices are some targeted stream and stormwater improvements in some of those sub-watersheds with the greatest issues. And then examples of the flood management recommendations included both increased communication with some of the major dam owners within the watershed to address some of the hazards associated with the dams, as well as exploring opportunities to inform residents of outside funding they could seek to help flood-proof their homes. There was a number of public outreach initiatives included over the past year. We had a project website where residents were able to provide input on specific observations and recommendations. There was a public survey, and then we had 2 public meetings. One back in May for feedback on the findings of the watershed assessment, and then the second meeting in July on feedback on the recommendations. We also had a 30-day public comment on the overall plan that concluded the revised plan reflects addressing any.
I've got a few. Yeah. I read the report, and there's a lot of information and a lot of pages in this report. It's a good report, but dealing with some of the things that we're up against. One, like take for instance, poor soil for septic tanks, and we have lots that are already approved, and lots that will eventually have septic tanks because they can't connect. They're further out and they can't connect to our sewer lines that are out there. And what we've run into is now we've allowed a direct discharge because it was the last resort in this issue. And the water, when it comes out, is supposed to be drinkable, but I'm not going to drink it personally. But you know, as we go through more development and people want to build on our lots and that's why it puts this group, this board, in a kind of a hot seat, because first off, it shouldn't have been approved for the soil conditions, but it was approved before we were on the board. Second off, I bought the land so I could build on it, and now you're telling me I've got poor soil and I can't get even an alternative septic system to work, or the one that I've got working now is failing, and this runoff is going into our streams. So we have land that has not been developed that we know is of poor quality. But then if we say you can't build on that, then the homeowner is going to come back and say, well, you're taking my land. This was where I was putting my dream home. This is what I was getting ready to, you know, build for my retirement home. And now you're telling me the soils are so poor that I can't build on this property. So how do we navigate that piece of property really won't, so it'll support a house, but it won't support a septic, so it won't support a house. But I can't legally tell you can't put a house on it, because then I'm taking your land, in which really I'm not taking your land. So it's and I think all this ties into all these water projects that we're looking into to protect our waterways and everything else. So as a board, and I've got a ton of different questions on the whole issue, because, you know, we're wanting to protect our waterways. We want to have fresh, clean water. We want to have the animals that are around the water, but we also in turn have to protect landowners' rights. And the balance between those two is very difficult. I know for me on this board, and some of the rural lands that were approved years ago that you could build on, but now all of a sudden you can still build on it, but with an alternative system that may or may not work. And we've seen one, and there's a couple that haven't. So, you know, it leaves us with the thing, do we as a board, in order to protect our waterways, buy these lots that we know eventually are not going to perk or won't sustain a 20 or 30-year house? And then, you know, like I've said, you got people that want to build a dream house or retirement. Should we start now about talking about bad soils and soil conditions and possibilities because we want to protect this, but you build the house is going to cause us more money, and not only cause our citizens more money for somebody to build a house than it'd be worth in the long run. So the citizens are going to feel like it's government coming down telling them you can't do certain things. And I know this a lot, and I'm not going to look for answers on all of this, but I'm kind of giving thought for our board to start thinking about, because the people that bought these lots were never told, look, you're buying on poor soil. This soil won't perk, or if it does perk, it won't perk to a 4-bedroom or 3-bedroom house. And at the time that they were all cut up, they were thinking of cottages in there. Now they're building $1 million houses there. Cranson's Mill Pond, you mentioned that in the report being part of it. And Cranson's Mill Pond, every time we have a significant rain event, it's going over the dam. It's 2 or 3 foot of water, and it's brown water that's going across there. And I know sometimes it's just the color, it's not the sediment and all that, and some help, some don't. But it's due to development upstream, and, you know, up from Cranson's Mill Pond, and I won't name anything, but there's a large development going on that's been going on for years. And, you know, so that is contributing into some of that, even though we're doing everything we can, and they are too, I'm sure, of what we're requiring to protect. So I'm not faulting them. I'm just saying during some of these storms, you get this. Right now, we're getting it at Route 60 and Croker Road. You can ride through there in a rain event, and there's more mud going across the road than anywhere else. And it's due to the development. And I'm not blaming anybody who's building out. There's a lot going on in that area, several different contractors and all that. But the pond over there near the candle factory is a mud pit. And I know it's a glorified now BMP to help protect the stream down further down. But those are all the issues that we deal with, trying to protect and want to protect our waterways. And it goes back further than, some things that we can stop. So if you have any advice on, or could tell us later, I'm not asking for today, and that's a lot of information. And Paul, you know what we deal with all the time, and it's helping this board when people come up with poor soil and poor conditions and build a house, and the health department says it might work. and then we find out it doesn't, then it gets put in these board members' lap to go, you need to fix this. Because I've been paying taxes on this poor soil, but they didn't think it was poor soil. They may have had no way of knowing it was poor soil. So how do we get above that gap? How do we help our citizens, help our environment, and help this board?
Sure. So I'll answer it this way. You know, it's tough when you do look out there, as you know. I mean, some of the lots that we're dealing with, some of the unimproved subdivisions where lots have never been, you know, lots were platted 40, 50 years ago before really any of the modern regulations were in place. At least for the document that you're looking at today, it's really just a policy document. This document today really kind of comes up most in the context of legislative applications. Those are going to be your much larger applications where SUPs, certainly the big brand new large development residential ones, come through as a rezoning. And certainly the recommendations that come forward, there are a lot of things that the board can look at when considering those. I think rather than today, which today really is sort of that policy document that stays right now, lives most in the legislative world, I think we'll be able to get more deep into some of your questions as we hit late spring, early summer. And I say all that to say, to take the heat off of the consultant, I'm going to put it back on to Mike and Tony for later this year. Those of you that have been on the board for a while, you might remember we did our last big overhaul of stormwater regs, I think in about 2013, when the state sort of overhauled the enabling legislation. State's done it again. They have a whole new set of regulations that will become effective July 1. And so here we are 10 years later, 11 years later. We're going to have to go back through that process with you all later this calendar year. We'll start with the work session and really try to walk you through the changes that we're going to need to make to the county code to be consistent with the new state code regs that come into effect. Tony and Mike, we're going to help lead that. We'll start walking you through that. You know, at the end of the day, again, for those individual lots that have been out there forever and ever, I don't think any of the new regs will necessarily impact those as much as they will on, say, like the major subdivisions. But some of the by right lots, you still have a lot of vested ability to keep doing that. New regs apply to new things. So there are lots of ones out there that I don't know that we have an immediate solution for, but again, those were platted a long time ago. But some of the details, you know, how we move some of this policy guidance into the code for brand new development from here moving forward post July 1st, we'll be getting into some of that later this year.
And that's more of what, you know, I know that this is not, and getting in the weeds is just bringing up the questions now so that we can prepare for them and start, you know, helping maybe get some of those, can we solve this issue? Maybe, maybe not, but can we solve some others? And so when I was going through the report, I was thinking of, you know, later on as far as what we're going to be up against. And, you know, this is not the only waterway. We've got the others that we need to look at as well, and they're just as important. And we've got some of these, like this one is pretty much untouched to a certain extent. And we've got the ones over by Eastern State, Powhatan and all that, you know, we know that all that area in there, we know that there's some damage in there. So this one, there's not much damage, but there could be if things move. If we don't pay attention and keep our eye on the ball on some of our best land, we could lose some of what we already have right now, and we could go down further with some of our waterways like we have over, you know, across the county, which Jim has mentioned more than one time on, you know, watching that as well.
You know, certainly the effort that we're going to get into in overhauling the Chesbay regs and Chapter 8 and the stormwater regs are going to be to better align with the state enabling legislation, but it very much does reflect on lessons learned of things that haven't given us the best results in the past. does attempt to codify those and bring some of those forward. You're correct. We're not going to be able to solve everything. We're not going to be able to fix every problem for every lot that's always been out there. But certainly, some of the conditions that have led to some of the trending results that you're seeing, I think a lot of the new regs are going to get to. You're right, so that we don't sort of keep having some of these same trends continue. We want to change the direction on those.
And I know you've got a lot on you, but if you could put, as we go through this process, just something as far as the lots that are out there that we know are suspect to fail with a septic. I know,
I
but
don't know
we've
that
got
we
to.
have that information, but we'll keep our eyes out for it. And
We're gonna almost have to address it eventually because there'll be people coming and they're gonna, and that area is developing more. It's more push up in that area. So I'm worried about it, and a lot of it's in my area, and I'm worried about, okay, hey, you're doing a land grab, and they're gonna blame the county for, I've got poor soil, but I never knew it, and they did. And they bought a lot thinking, I'm gonna build a house, and, and I don't blame them. I would be like, the county's forcing me to do this, but it's really not. So maybe that's something within the next year or two that we can start looking at, and because I know it's coming, it's just a matter of when.
also a really difficult problem to diagnose when so much of the approval authority rests with the state health department. We're only in it a little bit, because really the design and approval, as you know, is with sort of the private sector. Health department pushed all of that design and figuring out those solutions on the private sector for them to issue the permits. We'll keep our eye on how we can get to it if we can, for sure.
This will be my last one, gang.
Okay.
And then we may want to look at how do we, address I'll call it the shortfalls of the health department on the issues that we deal with daily, meaning you can do this, you can do that, you can have single point discharge, you can have this, you can have that. And maybe that's something we need to move up the ladder as far as, us having a little bit more control so we can decide our destiny, not the health department that is not. I know they're concerned with a lot of things. Maybe that we take this off their plate possibly and say this might be an issue that the county can solve better than the health department. My 2 cents. I'm done, man.
Let me get us back to our Yarmouth Creek Watershed Management Consultant to see if there's any questions specifically for our consultant. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time. Look to the board for a motion.
Motion for approval?
Thank you. Mr. Stevens?
Mr. McGlinnan.
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower.
Aye.
Ms. Knoll.
Aye.
Mr. Hippel.
Aye.
Ms. Larson.
Aye.
Motion carries.
That brings us to support of the Virginia American Revolution 250 Commission. Ms. Brittle? Welcome again.
What you have before you is a resolution to establish a James City County 250th Anniversary American Revolution Committee. The General Assembly created the Virginia American Revolution 250th Commission to facilitate a multi-year series of events and awareness programs. This commission has asked each local government in Virginia to form a committee to assist in their endeavors. Some of their plans include a new museum exhibit celebrating Virginia's contributions to America's freedom, the creation of a mobile museum to travel to localities and enhance festivals and school programs, and also some large-scale events. Each locality with the committee will have access to request a mobile museum, will have access to grant funds to assist with programs, and will have a web page developed to advertise our specific county history. Presently, a small committee comprised of staff members and some historic commission members is planned to get us started to support the state commission. I just look to you for approval of this committee and any guidance you might have in the formation. If you approve this, then I plan to attend the historic commission meeting this week and on the committee.
Thank you. Questions? This hopefully should be a very big deal. I know that there's some things that have already happened downtown. They've brought, and I think there's another gathering March.
There's a conference
Conference
that
yes.
CW is putting on, yes.
So I'm really hoping that James City County can really get behind this and be part of this. I think it's really exciting, and hopefully bring some visitors that have never been to the area.
We'll come back and look for maybe some input onto things that we might want to do. I have put a little bit of money in the upcoming budget. Plan to see about getting the mobile museum to come to James City County
Great.
Festival or
Good. I know it's a big part of our, go ahead.
I think if we do something, it ought to be big. I mean, it ought to be. It ought to be. I mean, this is where everything started. You know, we should tout, we should tout our horn and not be following behind anyone. We should lead. We should be the dog and lead the parade. So I think we need to get out front and do something.
And
That's
this
my
is a big part of the Visit Williamsburg CEO search. This is a big line item in that, looking for somebody that's really going to help the area, the 3 destinations.
market.
Yeah.
I will say, I did have a joint meeting with York County and Williamsburg, and they each have their own individual committees also. So part of this will be kind of, coordinating and seeing if there's anything we can do jointly also. York County in particular has a lot of history to celebrate and events that they have planned. They had their own tea party kind of thing. They're going to recommemorate that and some other things. So we'll be looking to partner maybe.
Great. All right. Thank you. Look to the board for any further discussion and/or a motion.
Push for approval?
Thank you, Mr. Stevens.
Mr. McGlennon?
Aye.
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Ms. Knoll? Mr. Eisenhower? Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, and before we carry on, we've had a request for a 5-minute recess, so we are going to recess for 5 minutes. Okay, we have returned from recess. Good afternoon, Mr. Reinheimer. How are you? You are here to give us the information on the interim agreement for new Consolidated Government Center.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And good afternoon, Madam Chair, board members, Mr. Stevens, and Mr. Kinsman. Before you this afternoon is a memo and resolution regarding an interim agreement for the new Consolidated Government Center. If you recall, in November, at the November 14th, 2023 board meeting, the board directed the county administrator to negotiate an agreement, an interim agreement, with the developer that we had chosen, Henderson Incorporated and Gilbane, to move forward with the construction of the new Consolidated Government Center. We have gone through the process of negotiating that interim agreement and are almost to a final interim agreement with the proposed site plan, building design, with the parking structure and approximately a 60,000 square foot building addition to the government center that would potentially house the school administration folks. Funding for this phase of the project had been previously allocated in the CIP for FY24, and this will take us to a 30% design completion phase, which includes a variety of things, the programming phase, design, topographic surveys, subsurface, a bunch of different components that would come into that 30%, including a traffic impact analysis. That phase will also include input from the public, input from county employees, input from you as the board, touring various facilities, boardrooms, things that we might want to see, providing our input into the building and design prior to the 30% completion. The total cost for that would not exceed $4,450,000, and again, that money had been previously approved in the CIP FY20. Questions?
Thank you. Questions?
I can. So this expenditure, which is in the current CIP, gets us to a 30% design. And I guess a couple of questions. What time frame are we looking at for getting the 30% design specs, everything back to the board? What kind of product can we expect? In other words, the level of detail, financial detail, layout detail, all that. Because I would imagine it's not going to be final. It's going to be a good waypoint for us to make a subsequent decision. Because what I'm really concerned about is I want to make sure that we are looking at
getting a real good handle on what exactly would be built and exactly what the cost would be and what the impact would be, and the timeline when we can get that information back, because there's the potential, as we all know, for many competing elements or projects that we would be facing. And so I will say that it's not a question that I don't think we ought to build it, but the question for me becomes one of not should we, but when, and how do we phase it, and how do we do it so that we can afford it, and the other things that we might have to be looking at. So what I'm concerned about is getting a product back where we say, you know, okay, here it is, and we've got to make a snap decision on it. My impression, my understanding on this, and this is something I'm predicated my support on, is that when we do get this product back, is that we do have an adequate time to engage the public on what is entailed in this and what kind of time frame we're looking at, because I think that's a really critical part of the project if we want to get public support for it.
Yes, sir. I agree with you wholeheartedly. The involvement of the public will certainly begin now once this interim agreement starts. We're having a discussion at the January 31st meeting at Legacy Hall. We're going to talk a little bit about the new government center. As far as timeline goes, it is 9 months. They'll have 9 months to get us to that 30% completion rate. After that, you know, it's kind of our decision then on if we're ready to move in towards the comprehensive agreement, or if we might need to go into another interim agreement to maybe get us to 50% or 60%. I mean, that's kind of our decision to make. Once we get through the 30%, we'll see where we are. By then we may have a better idea of what's happening in some of the other larger projects that I think you're alluding to in that question. But you won't be asked to make any sort of snap decision at all. The comprehensive agreement is the one that will be the large dollar amount that says we're ready to proceed, we're going to break ground, and we're going to move forward. That will absolutely, obviously, come before the board. And
we're looking at late this year, if not early next year, before that's
at the early.
That's something. Okay, all right, good. Thank you.
Any further questions? All right, with that, I would ask for a
For
motion.
approval?
Thank you, Mr. Stevens.
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Ms. Knoll? Aye. Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Mr. McGlennon?
Aye.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you so much. That brings us to an appointment of an alternate for the Hampton Roads Planning District Commission and Transportation Planning Organization. Unfortunately, we find that on several of those dates, we have a conflict with Mr. Eisenhower, and Supervisor McGlennon has offered to serve as the alternate. Are you still willing to serve?
Well, I went to my other meeting last night, so yes.
Okay.
The answer is yes.
Oh, yeah, thank you for that. All right, with that, I would ask for a motion to appoint Supervisor McGlennon as the alternate for the Hampton Roads Planning District Commission and Transportation Planning Organization.
So moved.
Thank you. Mr. Stevens?
Mr. McGlennon?
Aye.
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Ms. Knoll?
Aye.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Motion carries.
With that, we need to amend the board calendar to add April 12th, 2024 at 7:30 a.m. for the 2023 James City County Service Award Ceremony at the Busch Garden Globe Theater. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Thank you. Mr. Stevens?
Ms. Knoll?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Mr. McGlennon?
Aye.
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thanks so much. Board request and directives. Ms. Knoll? Do you have anything?
Oh, ma'am.
All right.
Nope.
Just want to mention that I had the opportunity to attend the Martin Luther King AXO luncheon last weekend, and enjoyed the ceremony very much. It's an opportunity to recognize young people in the community, high school students from all of the regional high schools who are selected from each of the classes, freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior, to recognize their academic accomplishments. And so it was very inspiring event. The AXO program itself is one in which talented young people from the community can compete, hopefully toward a national audience later this year for awards. And I know that our AXO organization, which was shepherded for so many years by Bobby Alexander, creates opportunities for young people and has allowed James City County and local residents to shine on a national stage, and in some cases come home with top honors. So appreciated that very much.
I had one that I wanted to bring up. I was invited to speak at the CLS class in the city of Williamsburg this morning, and they actually held that over at the library. And the subject they asked me to address was the relationship between local government and the military in our area, which was really a very interesting discussion with the class folks participating there. So I guess it's part of the Chamber's program that Mr. Kinsman's involved with tangentially, and so I really I think that was a very, very helpful for the group. I think we talked to a lot of folks today, and again, as usual, nobody knows whether they're in James City County, York County, or the city of Williamsburg, wherever they're located. So,
Yes.
Therefore, it's pretty much a regional approach.
I represented the board at the Day of Racial Healing, held at Legacy Hall last week, and presented a resolution. I think they said there were maybe 12 people, and it was a potluck, and it was a full room at Legacy. So it was a very nice event, and they had speakers, and they recognized some game changers in the neighborhood. I think they in the neighborhood. I apologize, in the area, and I was really pleased to represent our board there. The only thing, Mr. Stevens, is our resolution was this big, and the city of Williamsburg came with one that was 16 by 20. I mean, I don't know. We're going to have to start finding out. We're going to have to get a spy over there so we know when to show up with a frame. But just the other thing was just to mention again that the Visit Williamsburg CEO search is underway. If anyone local is interested, they can reach out to me on my county email, and I will get you situated with the search firm. The gentleman was in town last week. He had an opportunity to meet with our county administrator, the city manager, and the interim county administrator for the county of York, and then talked with other stakeholders here in the board, the Tourism Council Board. So we're well on our way. He met with Mayor Pons and I last evening, and was going to get it out today, I think. So, part of that will be part of what they have said in their job advertisement will be about the 250th, and also about how they would go about working with the sports complex, and because that's coming here as well. So those were two big things. I wanted to also mention that I hope that, and I say staff often as a way to talk about but when I'm saying that, I'm talking about all the employees. I hope that when people get up and talk about what a great staff we have and a great group of employees, I hope you all hear that. And I just really appreciate everything that you do, because it really stands out enough for people to come up here and mention it. So thank you for that. And then just a somber note, if I could, we just have been dealing, it seems as though, with a lot of suicide in our community lately. And when I say community, I'm talking about the greater Williamsburg area. And I just am so sorry that someone is despondent to that part of their life, and for their family, and also for first responders. That's really tough to deal with. And so I hope people can reach out, get help. If there's anything we can do, I hope that they'll reach out to us. Mental health is very important, and so I hope people, I know that Mr. Stevens talked at our holiday about, look out for one another, and I hope people will do that, because it's a tough time. So with that, I would ask for a mo-
Madam Chair, may I?
Oh, I'm sorry, skip right over the county administrator.
And I've got one other thing, just thought
Yes.
of when you were talking about York County. If you would mind talking with the chair of York County, and we've got a lot of building that's going on right at our line. Moortown Road now is putting in a ton. Over by the Marquee is a bunch of houses going in there. Lightfoot is to the point where you can't get through Lightfoot, and I don't know if it'll do any good or not, but with the warehouse they're putting in and that sort of thing, and I was talking to some different members even today about, you know, the problems that we're having in those areas, not due to our traffic, but neighboring traffic coming into our area, which, you know, we're going to cross back and forth. Most people don't know where the line is. But, you know, it used to be York County looked at the rural lands as rural lands. It would be slow growth and would stay rural lands. It seems to have turned. It looks like York County's looking at it as it's way up there and we'll build whatever. But it's really starting to affect our community. And we've always worked real well together. And maybe that's something we need to look at, is how we affect each other's community when we put something close to the line.
I will reach out, because I would be curious as to what kind of conversations they're having with VDOT regarding road improvements.
And
up in
evidently
that
there's
area.
none.
Yeah, it doesn't appear to be.
No.
But maybe they are, but I'll find out.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
With that, I'll go to the report of the county administrator.
Thank you, ma'am. I don't have a lot this afternoon, but I did just a reminder of our community conversation Wednesday, January 31st, 6 p.m. at Legacy Hall in Newtown. We'll have a discussion and question and answers with our residents on the regional sports complex, trash consolidation, the proposed government center, and then Chief Jameson will provide a public safety update, and just encourage residents to be there, and you as board members are certainly invited to be part of that as well. We won't ask you many questions, or at least that's not the intent, but I do want to just put that out there as a reminder and look forward to the conversation with our community members. Thank you.
Thank you. I do need a motion to enter closed session for the following: consideration of a personnel matter, the appointment of individuals to county boards and or commissions pursuant to section 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia. We have a planning commission appointment.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens.
Ms. Knoll?
Aye.
Mr. Hippel? Aye. Mr. McGlinnan? Mr. Eisenhower? Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Motion carries.
That we're in closed session.